to this conversation now. Deputy Defence and Military Veterans Minister Bantu Holomisa is calling for an internal investigation into the department's bookkeeping process. A Times Live report states that Holomisa flagged irregularities, including wasteful expenditure and a lack of transparency in some lease agreements. Well, the Deputy Minister is my guest this evening, and he joins me via the online platform coming to us from Port Elizabeth. Minister, good evening to you, Deputy Minister, and thank you very much for your time. Firstly, let's establish whether you are indeed the author of this document that is calling for an investigation.
Let me correct you, Oli. Some of you guys in the media, you get too excited when you read documents and you don't interpret them correctly. But that as it may, this week I published the work I've been doing since I joined the government. That is my report for 100 days in GNU. And I made a reference to the Auditor-General's report. The Auditor-General's report was tabled to us as a department in September. And the department has been asked to respond to that report. At the same time, I compiled a report on the request by the Minister Motsega, to give my own opinion and see how we can get out of this problem.
Yeah.
The department has been receiving qualified reports, audit report for 4 consecutive times. And then I prepared that report. And then I also tabled it in the portfolio committee. Mainly, it was our response as political heads of the department, because we could not allow ourselves to be painted with the same brush, yet we are new in the department.
Okay.
So we are thankful to the Auditor-General's report, because when it was tabled, it actually sent a strong message to us as new leaders in the department that this is the terrain you are going to deal with. And therefore, we have asked the portfolio committee has asked us that by end of October, we should have responded. And also we have promised the Auditor-General that we will respond paragraph by paragraph. So what I did in the report was to analyze each area they have raised, and also remind people that we need to clean our act, especially that we are going to approach the National Treasury for more money, because defense has been defunded for some time now.
Yes.
So we have to make sure that when they ask us, what about this paragraph on the auditor's report, we should be saying to the National Treasury, we have addressed that issue. Here is the report, so that we start from on a clean slate.
Okay, so here's the part I would like for us to clear. That report, therefore, are you calling for a probe into what is referenced here as the department's poor bookkeeping?
Yes, we have identified areas, taking it from the Auditor-General, who says there has not been a good standard in keeping the books, assets, also the question of corruption, which has some of the issues have been referred to the SIU. So my report, which I penned, was to say we have to come up with a better systems to make sure that we are not going to continue to be fingered for or lack of bookkeeping, because the Auditor-General did not mince her words on that one.
Okay.
In black and
Okay. And I want to then respond on behalf of us as media houses, because you started this conversation by saying we tend to sensationalize things. We are not sensational, because what you have called for is exactly what Times Live is calling you cracking the whip by calling for this internal investigation. So there's nothing wrong there. I think you and I can agree on that. But let's move on then. The lease agreements, General, what seems to be problematic about them? Because these are the very things that come back to bite the departments, because these lease agreements, in some instances, for example, if you look at the police lease agreements that have been concluded in the recent past, police have been paying millions but not occupying the buildings. So let's talk to these lease agreements. What exactly is problematic?
well, the Auditor-General has raised that issue in their report. And what we are going to do now as a department is to look into each transaction as to what has happened. Remember that some of these issues have already been referred to the SIU by the Auditor-General, not even by the department. So it just tells you that the situation is serious. So we have to address these issues. Unfortunately, we cannot fold our arms. So the report by the department, including the suggestions I've made in the report of the to the department, will be looked into, and the portfolio committee is already looking into some of what we have raised as political heads.
Yeah. Are you able to name names or at least companies that have received these contracts, and particularly the ones that appear suspect to your eyes?
No, I don't have the list of them now, but I'm sure if you can go to AG's website, I'm sure, because the Auditor General's report is a public document. Hence, we responded. We are responding public. There's nothing to be hidden here.
Yeah. General, you've made the statement that the Department of Defense has been defunded for a long time. If these issues are not sorted out, how worried are you that National Treasury will come back and say, because of these glaring inefficiencies, irregularities, we can't extend monies to you, and by extension, therefore, how badly does that affect the finances of your department at a time when the South African military is doing a lot of work, not only inside the country, but beyond our borders as well?
Well, we must make sure that the National Treasury doesn't think that by giving us money, they are throwing it into a bottomless pit. It is for that reason only that the Department of Defense, together with the Portfolio Committee of Defense, have made it clear that we are going to respond to the Auditor General's report, negative as it may look, but we have no choice but to account for each and every transaction. And if there is a need to ask questions to those who were responsible before us, we have to ask them to account. The other area which has been fingered is the area of procurement. The Auditor General's report is damning when it comes to that. That is the responsibility of the new government, GNU, to make sure that our defense force resembles the character of South Africa today which wants to come up with a clean slate in all state departments.
General, you are quoted in this report, the one that you authored, as saying these words. You see, now I'm forcing you to talk specifics. And I quote, "Transparency was lacking in a 46.79 million rand lease agreement for St. George's Hotel, where the procurement process was not properly followed. Various other non-compliances in the Department of Defence and Military Veterans amounted to millions more." Talk to us about this St. George's Hotel lease agreement. What was that about?
We extracted that from the Auditor-General's report, and it was to make sure that we address that issue because according to the Auditor-General's report, the PFMA regulations or rules were not followed, but the Secretary for Defense and the Commander of the Defense Force currently are looking into that, and we have to finish a proper response to that. So I'm sure you will read that when we table our report to the Auditor-General soon.
I'm not going to let you off that easily, General. No.
You are welcome.
Let me tell you why. Let me tell you why I've picked St. George's Hotel. This is the same hotel where the ANC holds its meetings. So what business would the military have had with this hotel? What exactly is the link between the Department of Defense and St. George's Hotel?
Well, I think my interests, and I guess even the minister's interest currently, is to respond to the Auditor-General. Whether this deal or transaction was above board, if it was not above board, and we concur with the Auditor-General, then obviously the next step would be how do we reverse that transaction if it was done corruptly. I am not interested in asking the ANC at this stage because the Auditor-General did not dwell much on that. It just said this transaction, out of the internal investigation, an inquiry or whatever by SIU or by us, then the name of the ANC might come up. So, but if you have more information, please help us, bring it forward.
I want to then conclude this conversation, General, on this point, and that is that South Africans want transparency in the use of their monies when all is said and done. The timeline of these investigations you are calling for, and a clear commitment that whatever is unearthed will be made public. Can South Africans get that firm commitment from yourselves?
I think you're asking that question to a wrong person. I've been occupying the crease and betting on a wicket of promoting ethics of good governance. Part of that is the word transparency. Part of that is that this transaction has already been raised in public by the Auditor-General. So there would be no need, therefore, to respond in secret. So our response in total, you will see it.
General Holomisa, I want to thank you very much for your time. The next conversation we're going to have, you and I, and I'm making that commitment now, and I'm hoping you'll do the same, is the well-being of our soldiers, General, particularly in the deployed areas such as Congo, because the reports coming out of that out of those areas have not been good. And so people want to know whether we are sending our people out to die when there is wastage, such as this one, that is reported on by the Auditor-General. But for the time being, let me thank you very much for your time.